Hello, Rick Miracle here with video number 53, part 2 of 2, continuing on with UFOs and the National Security State by Rick Dolan. I'm going to try to focus on descriptions. He's done a thorough job, and I thought maybe if we just listen to descriptions after description, we might get a grasp of what we're dealing with. So anyways, we ended off on the last one on the Roswell crash. Not only followed a rash of interesting sightings, it preceded one. On Sunday, July 6th, as the events in Roswell were still unfolding, a sergeant in Birmingham, Alabama saw several dim, glowing lights speed across the sky, photographed one of them. The same day, a B-25 crew saw a bright disc-shaped object below their aircraft at Fairfield Suisun Air Force Base in California. A pilot saw a strange object oscillate on its lateral axis, shoot across the sky in a few seconds. In southern Wyoming, an aviation engineer also saw an oval-shaped UFO. On Monday, the 7th, a young man named William Rhodes of Phoenix, Arizona, took 2 photographs of a flying saucer, which were published 2 days later on the front page of the Arizona Republic, right next to an article debunking the Roswell crash. Rhodes was soon visited by an FBI agent. Pardon my speaking and reading today. Got to get into the groove here. An intelligence officer from Hamilton Field, California. At their request, he gave them his pictures, which he never saw again. All too often that happened. All right. July 8th, 1947. At Muroc, 4 separate sightings by a number of officers and technicians took place. Each involved circular or disc-shaped UFOs seen at 9:30 a.m., 11:50 a.m., noon, and 3:50 p.m. Several pilots on the ground saw 2 silver-colored, spherical, and disc-like UFOs maneuvering over the base, circling tightly at 8,000 feet at speeds of 300 to 400 miles per hour. Since the objects were traveling against the wind, they were not balloons. Very soon afterward, the witnesses saw another object traveling in circles. 11:50 a.m., a crew of technicians saw a white aluminum object with a distinct oval outline descending and moving against the wind. Then at noon, an Air Force major at the field saw a thin metallic object climb, oscillate over the field, dive down to ground level, and rise again. The event was simultaneously observed by a test pilot, a captain at Rogers Dry Lake, a secure test base. The final sighting occurred as an F-51 pilot saw a flat object, a light reflecting nature, pass over his plane. Alright, even before Hoover's formal approval, the FBI interviewed many prominent UFO witnesses, including E.J. Smith and Kenneth Arnold. By the end of July, the FBI Army intelligence report concluded, the flying saucer situation is not all imaginary or seeing too much in some natural phenomena. Something is really flying around. And as you know, I just highlight certain sentences to get through all the words and get to the important issue, the UFO description. All right, page 34, something during the summer I could get a drink of water. It annoys me when I do those misspeaks. Your brain sees something and it interprets it, and as you look at it, you see the real interpretation. Funny how the brain works. Alright, sometime during the summer, a naval commander saw a disc-shaped UFO over the airport in Pittsburgh, Kansas. In Media, Pennsylvania, an Air Force pilot reported a disc hovering and speeding away. Captain Jack Peck and his co-pilot Vince Daly have stated that on August 4th, 1947, they sighted and followed a flying saucer northwest of Bethel, Alaska. They state the object was smooth-surfaced, streamlined with no visible means of propulsion whatsoever. U.S. military personnel in Guam reported two objects. Small, crescent-shaped, and traveling at a speed twice that of a fighter plane, flying in a zigzag motion over Harmon Field. Page 35. Later that week, an Air Force major at Rapid City Air Force Base in South Dakota saw approximately 12 objects fly a tight diamond-shaped formation. The objects were elliptical-shaped, silent, and glowed yellow-white. On August 19th in Twin Falls, Idaho, near the sighting 6 days earlier, residents and police saw a group of 12 strange objects flying in formation over the city at terrific speed. June 21, 1947, Harold A. Dahl, D-A-H-L, a log salvager on Murray Island, situated in Puget Sound between Tacoma and Seattle. He saw 6 large metallic donut-shaped aircraft about 100 feet in diameter, 2,000 feet overhead. 5 objects circled around one that seemed to be in trouble and losing altitude. Dahl heard no sound, saw no motors, propellers, or means of propulsion. The objects had large, round portholes on the outside and a dark, continuous observation window towards the bottom. Page 36. As Dahl took 3 or 4 photographs, one craft moved towards the center, apparently to help the troubled craft. A dull explosion followed, and the craft ejected a stream of light metal, which seemed like thousands of newspapers, and then ejected a heavier and darker type of metal, similar to lava rock. After this, the craft lifted slowly and drifted out over the Pacific Ocean, disappearing from sight. Oh, that was weird. Dahl said the heavy material damaged his boat, killed his dog, and injured the arm of his son, requiring a trip to the hospital. He described the event to a man he described as his supervisor, estimating that 20 tons of material had fallen. Well, that's interesting, the description. The craft ejected a stream of light metal, which seemed like thousands of newspapers, and then ejected a heavier, darker type of metal similar to Ravolock. Wow. So much for interdimensional spacecraft. What do they have on board those ships? Alright, Dahl followed him to a diner, ordered breakfast, and listened in astonishment as the man related Dahl's entire experience from the day before, all in precise detail. "What I have said is proof to you," said the man, "that I know a great deal more about this experience of yours than you will want to believe." So Dahl had some man approach him and explained to him in details what had happened to him. So it's probably some kind of insider who knew about the crashed or in-troubled ship, UFO ship. It should be remembered that Army intelligence was then using Western Union as part of Operation Shamrock. Alright, en route he had another lesser-known UFO sighting of about 20 small objects moving at terrific rate of speed. Arnold took moving pictures of them, which turned out poorly. Arnold then took Arnold to his secretary's home to see some fragments, one of which served as an ashtray. This would be Dahl taking UFO investigator Arnold to see some fragments, one of which served as an ashtray. Arnold said it looked like lava rock. No, said Dahl, this was the stuff that hit his boat. And Chrisman had a box of it in his garage. And again, I'm only reading spotty parts of paragraphs, so I'm jumping around so you can get the gist. On the morning of Thursday, July 31, Chrisman and Dahl brought heavy fragments of some white material. The lava-like pieces were unusually heavy, smooth on one side and slightly curved. On the other side, they looked as though they had been subjected to extreme heat. The white metal had square rivets as opposed to the standard round ones. All right. National Security Reorganization. Amid the flying saucer mayhem, the U.S. government passed the National Security Act of July 26, 1947. This created a unified national military establishment, NME, a National Security Council, NSC, and a Central Intelligence Agency, CIA. So the CIA was in on all this. And moving on, if one wishes to raise private armies for secret wars around the world, or remove intractable, however you say it, national leaders determined to forge policies independent of the USA, then huge amounts of money become a necessity. Initially, much of the CIA's money seemed to have come from wealthy Americans. That'll probably be your banksters, Illuminati folks, big corporations, government contracts. As future CIA operations chief Frank Weiser put it, in obtaining money for secret ventures, it is essential to secure the overt cooperation of people with conspicuous access to wealth in their own right. In other words, people who are rich. So the people who are rich have all the inside information, privy to the UFO technologies and in control of much of the world. And a book I'm reading right now, which maybe I'll talk about next, The Creatures from Jekyll Island. The people who established the Federal Reserve in secret. A bunch of wealthy Morgans and Rockefellers and Rothschild types. And they controlled our money with the intent of power and control, and them getting richer and the people getting poorer. In 1913, and I'm sure before that, and certainly after that, we all know there was a continuance of them having control over the money, which controlled the resources of the UFO investigations and the outcome of the technology discovered. So it is all interdependent, and it bodes well for us people, citizens, to wake up to this fact that we're being dealt a stacked deck. Everybody's losing their home, and a guy called me the other day about job that existed that he was looking for, and asked him what he did now. And he says he works for a big investment group that are buying up foreclosures across the United States. Thousands and thousands of them. And I thought, what an intentional scheme. Maybe they have to take everybody's home in America and create a gigantic investment trust where they rent these homes to American people instead of ownership to keep them in slavery. And they'll take that big investment trust, this is just me thinking, and give it to China in return for the trillions they owe China. So they'll intentionally create a situation so the American people lose their homes and other things, commercial property, business investments, and give all that wealth to China or other parties that they owe money to. Nice way of getting money from the citizens outside the scope of attacks. A theft. Don't mean to get off on the sidebars there, but the money that it cost and the secrets they had to keep of all these sightings that people now try talking to anybody, they'll start giggling and think you're being silly to talk about UFOs or aliens. I just had a neighbor of mine drop off some avocados, and outside here in North Carolina in the mountains, they've been sky spraying in the last 2 days like crazy. X's and Z's all over the sky. And I try to point it out to her, and she refuses to look her head up and look at it. This is what we're up against, some kind of crazy mind control. People won't even look at these issues. Strange. All right, the Twining letter, page 43. By this time, Schlesinger's letter had reached the desk of General Nathan Twining, head of the Air Materiel Command. On September 23, 1947, Twining wrote a classified, now famous letter regarding flying saucers. He noted that the discs were real and not visionary or fictionist. General Twining, much more a man in the know than I am. They may possess a natural phenomenon, he wrote, such as meteors, but the reporting operating characteristics such as extreme rates of climb, maneuverability, particularly in roll and action, which must be considered evasive when sighted, lend belief to the possibility that some of the objects are controlled either manually, automatically, or remotely. He went on to list the common descriptions of the objects: metallic or light reflecting surface, absence of trail, except in a few instances when the object apparently was operating under high performance conditions, circular or elliptical in shape, flat on bottom, domed on top. Several reports of well-kept formations, flights varying from 3 to 9 objects. Normally no associated sound except for, in 3 instances, a substantial rumbling roar was noted. Level flight speeds normally above 300 knots are estimated. Twining recommended that Air Force Headquarters issue a directive assigning a priority security classification and code name for the detailed study of this matter. So UFOs are not real, but they're having high security meetings and establishing protocols on how to handle these sightings. All right, here we go. MJ12 filmmaker Jamie Shenander received an unmarked package in the mail containing an undeveloped roll of film. Along with his friend UFO researcher William Moore, The two had the film developed. Photographs were of documents that looked like secret briefing papers for then President-elect Dwight Eisenhower, dated November 18, 1952. The documents stated that flying saucers were the product of extraterrestrial civilization, that several flying saucers had crashed, including at Roswell, and come into the possession of the U.S. government, and that the U.S. had one of the aliens in custody. This was for the President Dwight Eisenhower. For some time before it died, so the UFO alien died, the document claimed that President Truman had established a top secret control group to deal with the problem called MJ-12. On September 24, 1947, the group's original members were CIA Director Adam Hillenkotter, Dr. Vannevar Bush, Secretary of Defense James Forrestal, General Nathan Twining, General Vandenberg, Dr. Bronk, Dr. Hunsaker, Sidney Sawyer, Gordon Gray, Dr. Menzel, General Montwig. Page 45, you can get this book and read all this. Berkner. Included was a memorandum then from President Truman addressed to James Forrestal, which established the group. It was dated September 24, 1947 and stamped top secret and eyes only, and it read as follows. Dear Secretary Forrestal, Secretary of the United States, as per our recent conversation in this matter, you are hereby authorized to proceed with all due speed and caution upon your undertaking. Hereafter this matter shall be referred to only as Operation Majestic 12. It continues to be my feeling that any future considerations relative to the ultimate disposition of this matter should rest solely with the office of the President, following appropriate discussions with yourself, Dr. Bush, and Director of Central Intelligence. Signed, Harry Truman. Unfortunately, the group members were skilled disinformation and psych-op specialists, a fact that throws the legitimacy of the document into doubt. So these guys were all insiders, knew stuff that the people never knew. An especially controversial point about the document was its mention of Harvard astronomer Donald Menzer as a member of MJ-12. For decades, Menzer was the world's leading UFO debunker. So these debunkers were probably hired government people to discredit and conceal from the public the UFO reality. So they actually published things in the news that said it was all funny and a hoax and a lie, and don't believe a thing you read or hear. Could Menzer really have belonged to the group MJ-12? It seemed like a bad joke. To the surprise of all, however, Friedman soon learned that Menzer was closely tied to the American intelligence community. So they've been telling you it was all a lie, and the people who have been telling you were tied to the American intelligence community as a cryptologist, and had a long-standing association with the National Security Agency, the NSA. President-elect John Kennedy mentioned in his top secret clearance, and same association with this mentioned his top secret clearance, and same association with the CIA. In the 1970s, Menzer wrote that he was a consultant with top secret ultra clearance to the National Security Agency. Menzer and Vannevar Bush. So this is in the 1970s. They're debunking aliens. And I'd like to bring about one other little fact. So consider the timing. Kennedy being killed, the early 1970s. Kennedy was interested in the UFO issue. The banks had controlled the country. Some secret people wrote this book. Report from Iron Mountain. And it was published here in 1967. And basically, it's a book on how to control the people. Page 8. It is surely no exaggeration to say that a condition of general world peace would lead to changes in the social structures of the nations of the world of unparalleled and revolutionary magnitude. Page 8. So this book describes, Report from Iron Mountain, creating terrorist attacks, environmental issues, weather control issues, UFO alien issues, big issues to keep the people in terror and fear so that they would have to have their leaders do things and be in control. As I just read, because the government back in the late 60s and early 70s was worried about revolutionary changes. And remember, all over the world in my previous videos, this is 1962 and 1970, John F. Kennedy era. And if you look at the back of these New Age books published by the Freemasons, their lodges, if you can see that column over there on this side, they're all over the world in control of everything. Politicians, money, banks. Argentina, Australia, Belgium, Bolivia, Brazil, Canada, Central America, Chile, Colombia, Costa Rica, Cuba, Dominican Republic, Ecuador, Salvador, England, France, Greece, Honduras, Ireland, Israel, Italy, Mexico, Netherlands, Nicaragua, all over the United States, Panama, Paraguay, Philippines, Scotland, Switzerland, Turkey, Uruguay, Venezuela, and more. So these people were in control of the money, the New Age now. So what we're dealing with now, the rainbow agenda, the gay agenda, the New World agenda, even the Pope is talking about. This is November 2014. And the new Pope recently, according to one video, said that it is dangerous for people like me or you to try and pray to Jesus directly. There is a tie-in between the UFO and the interdimensional beings, demons or fallen angels, or the Nephilim, and they say there's some kind of planet X coming and all that. See, and who controls the money? Who controlled the CIA? And at that time, too, in the late 60s, early 70s, they now started publishing books saying there were too many people. By the Club of Rome, the other Illuminati Masonic groups. And at the same time, we might be reminded that they were busy building underground cities since the late 60s, 70s, and 80s, and 90s, and 2000s, like crazy. All kinds of evidence to that effect. And then, of course, Henry Mackay wrote a book, Jewish Guy in Canada, Illuminati, the cult that hijacked the world. So they own all the banks, they own all the money. And then I'm reading this book here, The Creature from Jekyll Island, which the Morgans and Schiffs and Senator Aldridge from the Washington, D.C. all went to Jekyll Island off of the Georgia coast and created the Federal Reserve in 1913. While people are citing UFOs, and these people who wrote all these books were in charge of all those activities, including the UFO activities. They were insiders. They knew everything. So John Kennedy mentioned his top secret clearance in some association with the CIA. In 1970s, Menzel wrote that he was a consultant with the top secret ultra clearance at the NSA. See what I'm saying? You don't think the NSA, CIA is completely in cahoots with the underground cities they're building? Or these depopulation theories, and so they say is a problem with the unsustainable activity on the planet that people actually walk around and believe now because they've heard it so many times. What did Hitler say? If you tell a lie long enough and big enough, eventually people will start believing it. So they were telling a lie that there were no UFOs and no aliens. Meanwhile, page 50, as if to reinforce the immediacy of the problem, 2 cigar-shaped UFOs were seen near Dayton, Ohio on October 20th, 1947, very close to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. All right, okay, let's read page 51. Twining described them in September only in much greater detail. Relatively flat bottom with extreme light reflecting ability, absence of sound except for an occasional roar when operating under super performance conditions, extreme maneuverability and apparent ability to almost hover, a planned form approximately that of an oval or disc with dome shape on the top surface, the absence of an exhaust trail except for a few instances when it was reported to have a bluish color like a diesel exhaust, which persisted for approximately 1 hour. Other reports indicated a brownish smoke trail that could be the results of a special catalyst or chemical agent for extra power, the ability to quickly disappear by high speed or by complete disintegration, and the ability to suddenly appear without warning as if from extremely high altitude. The size most reported approximately that of a C-54 or Constellation type aircraft, the ability to group together very quickly in a tight formation, and then more than one aircraft are together. Evasive ability indicates possibility of being manually operated or possibly by electronics or remote control devices. Under certain power conditions, the craft seems to have the ability to cut a clear path through the clouds, width of path estimated to be approximately 1/2 mile. Only one incident indicated this phenomenon. Meanwhile, they're building tunnels with cities all over the USA, writing books, the report from Iron Mountain, and New Age monthly booklets from the Freemason Society, which control all the background companies and people in high places and banks and money and decisions that you don't know about. So back on page 52, while there remains a possibility of Russian manufacture based upon their prospective thinking and actual accomplishments of the Germans, it is the considered opinion of some elements that the object may in fact represent an interplanetary craft of some kind. Page 53, the aerodynamics at ATIC Wrightsfield Aircraft Laboratory in the Aeromedical Laboratory of the Air Force concluded that no known aircraft could do what the UFOs were reported to be doing. Even if such an aircraft could be built, the human body could not survive the violent maneuvers that were reported. And number 3, no known material could withstand the loads of the reported maneuvers, nor the heat caused by the high speeds. For this reason, a certain significant number of analysts, we do not know how many, believed it's probable the flying saucers were interplanetary. The evidence seemed to rule out everything else. A memo from this period asked, why couldn't these people, whoever they might be, stand these horrible maneuver forces? Why judge them by earthly standards? In late December 1947, astronomer C.C. Wiley at an AAAS conference suggested that flying saucers were an example of a national mass hysteria. Press ridicule of UFOs remained intense. See, there you go. And newspaper articles that printed UFO reports were scarce. So they kept it out of the news, and they made ridicule of people who said anything. Yet it often happened that when a reporter went out to interview someone who had seen a UFO, military intelligence agents had been there first and gotten the story complete with sketches. Many people had apparently been warned not to talk too much. Project Sign begins. For the first half of 1948, Project Sign studied UFO reports and analyzed evidence at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Many of the reported objects were dome-shaped or cigar-shaped, maneuvered in formation, accelerated swiftly, and made reversals in flight. The sign team, however, never fully agreed on the nature of these reports. Factions existed, variously believing UFOs to be nonsense, foreign technology, interplanetary spaceships, public psychosis, and a fad spawned by post-war nerves. Managing the problem, 1948 to 1951. All evidence and analysis indicate that reports of identified flying objects are the result of misinterpretation of various conventional objects, a mild form of mass hysteria and war nerves, individuals who fabricated such reports to perpetuate a hoax or to seek publicity. And another one is psychopathological persons. So my doctor friend who just dropped off the avocados, when I tried to point out the sky spraying going on today, probably thinks I'm a psychopathological person. Even though I can take a picture and a video and post them on YouTube, which I have of a couple hundred. So I guess they say about 15% of us are, seem to be not under mass mind control. We don't seem to be susceptible to the TV, radio, and the program they're doing on 85% of the people. So the 85% that are mind controlled really believe there is nothing to UFOs and sky spraying and HARP systems and presidential Kennedy's assassination and 9/11 was done by Arabs with box cutters. They believe what they are told in the news. It is quite evident to the intelligence officers who interviewed these men that they had certainly seen some very unusual object which they could not identify, but was just as certainly not any conventional type of aircraft. That's a 1950 CIA report. Inquiries into this matter should be made in such a manner as to not indicate Air Force interest. So they wanted to investigate them, but they wanted to seem like they weren't interested. And this is a 1950 Air Force memo on retrieving UFO movie footage from a civilian. All right, Goodman Air Force Base, Kentucky personnel described it alternatively as a bright disc-shaped object, round and cone-shaped. It appeared to be a metallic object and of tremendous size. This would be January 7th, 1948. Another one here, it seemed to be pretty high in the air. This is January 7th, 1948. Appearing to change color from white to red, to hover and then move with great speed. During rapid descents, it appeared in the form of a cone or an upside-down triangle. When it climbed, it seemed to turn itself right side up. A green mist was seen following the object. And again, I remind you, give credit where credit is due. Go by Richard Dolan's UFOs, National Security State. And that's exactly what it means because of the secrecy involved in the UFOs. They actually created a secret government behind the president and all the other people who were not privy to the knowledge of what they knew, what they found, what they did. which created a national security state, like the German SS troopers operating in the background against the people of the public and the government. Many of the officials were trying to find out, and I'm sure a lot of them suffered either death or discrimination for trying to find out. Anyways, Colonel McCoy, page 58, was present and spoke briefly on the subject of UFOs, March 17th and 18th, 1948, I suspect. This cannot be laughed off. We have over 300 reports which haven't been publicized in the papers from very competent personnel in many instances. We are running down every report. I can't even tell you how much we would give to have one of those crash in an area so that we could recover whatever they are. An interesting statement, especially considering that it was Wright Field where alien bodies were supposedly kept, according to some defenders of the crashed disc theory, Roswell. As chief of intelligence of Wright Field, McCoy would seem to be in a position to know whether or not such notions were true. A team at White Sands Proving Grounds, a team of Navy missile trackers. That sounds like some competent people. So down there in White Sands, New Mexico, a team of Navy missile trackers and a scientist tracked a UFO for several minutes as it streaked across the afternoon sky in a series of steep climbs and incredible maneuvers. The object appeared to be disc or oval shaped, about 1/5 the apparent size of the full moon. Most amazing was the object's speed, which was measured at as fast as 18,000 miles an hour. Alright, moving on here. UFO encounter by the U.S. Canadian Air Forces at Goose Bay, Labrador. A radar operator picked up a target on his scope moving at an incomprehensible speed of 9,000 miles per hour. Alright, intelligence report discounted this because the object's altitude, a constant 65,000 feet. So it couldn't be a meteor if it's doing 65,000 feet constant, because a meteor would drop down. The following day, both radars reported an object hovering over the base at 45,000 feet, moving at 10 miles an hour. Planes can't even fly at 10 miles an hour. They would drop. If it was a helicopter, they would have known that. In late July came 2 sightings of a brilliant rocket-like object which shook the analysis at Project Sign. On July 20th, the Netherlands government reported to the U.S. Air Force that a wingless, cigar-shaped object with 2 decks of windows was seen flying rapidly on 4 separate occasions at The Hague. The pilots C.S. Childs and J.B. Whitted, as well as 1 passenger, said the object rushed straight at them and then veered to the right of the airliner, emitting a long gust of red exhaust, and either shot up into the clouds or vanished. The official explanation soon became unknown, but the members of Project Sign team believe they identified this one as extraterrestrial. The qualifications of the witnesses, the incredible description of what they saw, and the up-close and personal nature of the sighting itself led them to endorse the extraterrestrial hypothesis as the most logical for the existence of UFOs. So what was that? It was a wingless, cigar-shaped object. So a big cigar in the sky with 2 decks of windows. You know, a plane has a long row of 1 windows. 2 decks of windows was seen flying rapidly on 4 separate occasions at The Hague in the Netherlands. Thought maybe I'd switch gears and have a little fun with some pictures. Different artists' renditions or photographs, I don't know. But if you go to aliens images on the internet, Yahoo image site, you can find all kinds of images of these creatures, so-called the Greys. Remember that movie E.T.? They try to make them out to be cozy little friendly critters. Are these what are flying, these cigar? Can you just imagine a cigar-shaped craft with 2 rows of windows? What, seats a couple hundred people? And all these people are looking out the window? At you? At me? At us? Just using my imagination. And then Egyptian hieroglyphics on the monuments and statues. That's a serpent-like being holding an infant, suckling her breast of the snake-like being. And apparently there are a lot of reptilian-like beings that are called shapeshifters. Remember, this is a real statue out there in the Egyptian area or somewhere. On the websites, on the image sites, it gives you a description where they came from on the bottom. So an artist's rendition of a reptilian. So the 2 types that are common are the reptilians and the Greys. And apparently the reptilians, with their interbreeding with humans, can come very close to be human looking. They have a cat-like eyes, and a lot of videos on YouTube are taking of important people, famous people in the world, who seem to lose their concentration and de-shapeshift, so that their mask seems to start to fall off, and then they pull it back somehow with thought control. But their eyes show them away sometimes. And that's what they say the Queen is. There's been some stories about some of the things they do in castles with children, viciously killing them and eating them, if you can believe that. And shape-shifting, the technology, I'm not quite sure how it works. But if it's an interdimensional being, maybe the human sight just can't see it. Again, back in the Egyptian hieroglyphics, you see the being with the bird head and the sword in his hand. And the wings on his back. That reminds me of the California SWAT team, folks, that we discussed. With the bird and the sword wings on these people in California, you can see the name of the video there and go watch it, doing a SWAT team exercise in California, and one of the citizens noticed it and started videoing it, and apparently they gave him a lot of trouble. But look at the shirt. You can look this video up. The sword and the wing, and pardon me for noticing, but this guy's got wings and a sword. The Anunnaki and the Egyptian hieroglyphics in Egypt. And here's the guy with the shirt. So, you know, these guys might be working for the city department of police or whatever. They may not actually know what they're involved in. Why the emblems on the shirt are designed like that. Well, then again, they might know. Look at these guys. They don't look friendly. Makes you wonder. Could those guys be reptilians? In disguise, these guys. Could they be monsters in disguise? Just saying. And of course, Jesus in the Bible, they have the monsters with the wings. There's nothing new here. The Grim Reaper with all the monsters behind him coming from the Hades. Here the Vatican is interfacing with some demon-like critter. Picture taken in a cave. Anunnaki and hidden technology. So the Anunnaki apparently are coming with Planet X. Consider themselves the divine right to rule the people of planet Earth. Charles T. Hall and the Tall Whites. So could that be some kind of hybrid human with the aliens? You can see the name of the video there. I watched all these videos. Keep calm and prepare for UFO disclosure. Make viral in-depth interview with Akesh. So they say these aliens are coming to save the planet. So I suppose if they're going to save it from something, they need to create chaos or a problem to save us from. Yep, and history has giants on the earth. Different kinds of beings. I thought we'd just look at that and get back to the book. Are these people the ones in those ships? So anyways, back to UFOs and the national security state. The estimate of the situation, page 60. After the dramatic Child's Witted sighting, the members of Project Sign prepared to estimate the situation. So it seems the UFO issue was getting out of hand. The situation was the UFOs, the estimate was that they were interplanetary. When the estimate was completed, typed, and approved, it started up through the channels to the higher command echelon. It drew considerable comment, but no one stopped it on its way up. Alright, the top secret estimate then reached the Air Force General Staff Hoyt Vandenberg, who rejected it. So they wrote an estimate of this concern, and this general said, "Throw it in the trash can, I reject your theory." A group from ATIC went to see Vandenberg to reinforce their arguments, but to no avail. Rupert said that some months later the report was completely declassified. All but a few copies were burned. Aldrich wrote that Rupert's stated method was the destruction of the documents. Declassification and burning is incorrect procedure, and why he said it was a mystery. So they wanted to burn that report that said this was a concerning issue. Destroyed all copies. Eliminated from the human consciousness. From the news, no copies, no witnesses, no evidence. All those sightings never happened that were reported. The report also said to have concluded that aliens were making full-scale observation of Earth, but that attack did not seem imminent. Officials decided to maintain secrecy until they gathered more information. Rupert told Keyhole privately. The general said it would cause a stampede. How could we convince the public that aliens weren't hostile when we ourselves didn't know? So in the meantime, again, I like to keep a figure of other things going on at the same time. So this is what they think about UFOs now. CIA, NSA, governments, presidents, all the people in the know. And those people in the know then write the population bomb and how too many people in the world and it's not sustainable. and the limits to growth. They're trying to justify in the congressional halls where they all discuss things in private the depopulation efforts to kill off most of the people on the planet. And meanwhile, they're building tunnels everywhere and cities and stocking them up with wine and cheese and other kinds of goodies, I suppose, while the post office and other agencies are buying hollow point bullets, manufacturing drones to track the people so the people can't run, and FEMA camps and in prisons. Because if they're in these underground cities, they don't want you knocking on the door, a massive amount of people trying to get in. Just me thinking here. So do they have to kill off the people? Do they have to create an argument of unsustainability and create all the pollution in the waterways and sky spraying with all the contaminants killing the crops and controlling the weather and building underground cities? That's my argument. And who's in charge behind the scenes? The people who own the banks, the Freemasons, the Illuminati, the Zionists over there in Israel, all the secret occultic organizations in Hollywood who are making all these freak-out shows with crazy sex and everything, decadent. And over in the Middle East, I saw a video that just horrified me the other day. They had a bunch of men hung up in lockers over there in the Middle East with their heads cut off. And the heads were all lined up against the wall, standing there in a row, like the heads. It's all, it's meant to just incite the fear in the human mind. As a few people told me lately, it's getting so crazy out there, so hard to make money, so hard to survive. People are just losing their minds, stressing out, freaking out. And that's the purpose, my friends. That's intentional. The fear factor. Meanwhile, they know there's a UFO and alien ships, whether they're interdimensional, demonic people, entities from inside portals that they're opening that Hitler was trying to do, and did apparently, or aliens from another planet, still constituting a different kind of breed and interbreeding and somehow taking control of our police departments and using the same symbols on the Egyptian hieroglyphics. So meanwhile, Truman, Landry, and UFOs, Colonel Robert Landry was President Harry Truman's Air Force aide. And speaking of 1948, Landry said, "I was called one afternoon to come to the Oval Office. The President wanted to see me. We talked about UFO reports and what might be the meaning for all these rather way-out reports and sightings, and the subject in general. The President said he hadn't given much serious thought to all these reports, but at the same time he said that if there was any evidence of a strategic threat to the national security, the collection and evaluation of UFO data by Central Intelligence warranted more intense study and attention at the highest government level." Yeah, think? So meanwhile, or after the fact, the Vatican builds a telescope in Arizona called Lucifer. And then you got your guy with the wings and a sword and other kind of creatures of serpent description, like that little thing in the center there. See the serpent? And then the guy with the sword and the wings. And the Lucifer Project, see, involving the church with the Greys. So the Vatican seems to be now saying and praising Lucifer and saying that he is the father of Jesus even. So some of the videos on the internet say. So there's a lot of other people talking about this. But why would the Vatican have a telescope named Lucifer? Because the mentality amongst those who are at the highest levels of the Vatican administration and geopolitics know that knowledge of what's going on in space and what's approaching us could be of great import in the next 5 or 10 years. Father Malachi Martin. So what is approaching us? What are they getting ready for? Why a ceremony with this guy with a hood on? Why did the Pope visit Hitler? On the eve of World War II, the Pope has a coronation with the Hitler people. And of course, Lucifer, the Vatican telescope, is watching the skies. Do they expect the cosmic Christ to be coming from out there? Alien infestation. Look at the Vatican's hat. That would be the Dogon, so-called aliens, aquatic aliens, who probably would have to have come here in ships full of water if they were, instead of the oxygen and air that we live in, they lived in water. And apparently, that's what they are. The Dogon. See the hat? It's a fish head. And apparently, telescopes aiming at the sky are seeing this interesting thing coming. And there's Lucifer, the telescope, keeping its eye open. There's Lucifer, picture him next to the telescope. University of Arizona, Vatican, and Jesuits. The new Pope is a Jesuit, which is a warrior tribe for the Pope, warrior group. Name new telescope Lucifer in 2010, April 23. And in the Vatican, they got a nice little monument to Lucifer with his wings and his sword and his horse. And even in the Vatican, they got this horrendous, horrific-looking thing behind the Pope with, I guess, Lucifer there. Or Hermes, or some kind of creature with all the creatures behind him. Are a wave of these creatures coming to our planet. I know it's amusing. Come on. There's the fish hat. The Dogon people, which would be the star system Sirius, the aquatic creatures. And I know I've shown you these pictures before, but some of these are just too funny. This guy steps down as Pope, and the same day lightning hits the Vatican. Look at him. He looks like... Here's a funny card here. Tell me, Master, what shall I do next? So there you have it, some fun photos. Let's go back to the book here. On October 1, 1948, Air Force National Guard F-51 pilot in Fargo, North Dakota named Thomas Gorman had a dogfight with a small, flat circular UFO. While flying, Gorman saw a light about 8 inches in diameter displaying incredible movements. He repeatedly gave chase, each time outmaneuvered by the object. It eventually departed upward at high speed. Gorman said he had the distinct impression that its maneuvers were controlled by thought or reason. You think? As he closed to intercept, the object speeded up. This is another one in Japan. To 1,200 miles per hour, then slowed down again. 6 times the crew tried to close on the UFO. Each time the object accelerated out of reach. On one pass, the crew saw the object's silhouette, which looked like a rifle bullet 20 to 30 feet long. In Maryland, a strange chase took place by a U.S. Air Force Reserve pilot in pursuit of an oval-shaped UFO that appeared to be something as a ball of light Then on November 23rd, the first documented simultaneously visual and radar sighting of an unidentified flying object took place at Fürstenfeldbruck Air Force Base near Munich, Germany. An object was detected circling rapidly at 27,000 feet. An F-80 pilot sent to intercept described it as bright red. While he was maneuvering to intercept, the object abruptly climbed to 50,000 feet at 900 miles per hour, far beyond the capabilities of any known aircraft. The green fireballs, page 63. December 27th, on December 5, 1948, an Air Force C-47 pilot at 18,000 feet near Albuquerque observed a huge green fireball arch upward, then level off to horizontal trajectory. Several minutes later, a Pioneer Airlines pilot saw a large orange object approach it in a flat trajectory, become green, then dodge to the side, fall away towards the ground. Thus begins the mystery of the green fireballs, which the U.S. defense establishment in the Southwest studied intensely. Page 64. Go buy this book. I'm only going over 10 years of 30 years and only reading a few paragraphs here. Not reading the whole book. And trying to show that you have to take this all into context. Like I said, the people who run the world, the banksters, the Illuminati, the Freemasons, the Vatican, the Zionism, the secret occult, into the Kabbalah, as it says in Albert Pike's book. Remember, this series is Freemasonry and Satanism. So I am trying to say that whoever these satanic creatures are, their symbol is that wing and sword, as you see on his shirt, which is the symbol for Hermes, which is the demonic being from Hades, which is also the symbol for Lucifer, which is the demonic being from Hades. And, you got these weird-looking symbols on the Freemasons books. Two-headed eagle. And the eagle is the symbol for Mendes, which is the devil, if you didn't know that. And then it's got the, on top of that eagle is the triangle, the glowing rays, and the crown. Just strange stuff. From December 1948 through April 1949, at least 39 reports of green fireballs were sent to Air Material Command. Afterwards, they were seen sporadically in the area for years. Laplace saw his first green fireball on December 12, 1948. Even more startling, however, was that the object maintained a horizontal path at an extremely low altitude for a meteorite of 8 to 10 miles. Moreover, it moved too slowly to be a meteor and was completely silent. In a confidential memo dated December 20th, 1948, La Paz argued that it was no meteor or fireball. If so, it was certainly no type he'd ever studied. He later told Rupert that he did not believe it was a natural phenomenon. Top secret documents. Let's see here. December 10th, 1948, Air Intelligence completed its top secret 19-page analysis of flying objects incidences in the U.S. The document did not suggest that UFOs might be extraterrestrial, but it did state that the objects were seen were real and baffling. Just makes you wonder, the stuff on the Egyptian hieroglyphics. Are these guys back? It's right out of a sci-fi TV show, or a movie. Twilight Zone. But then the sky sprang in the last 2 days here in North Carolina has been crazy. And a lot of times I can see ripples in it, like somebody took a cheese slicer through the stuff sprayed in the sky, which is an indicator of electromagnetic radiation, which I take photos of and post the videos of. So it's like we're in the twilight zone in our reality today in 2014. However, even if the estimates were merely a figment of Rupert's imagination, the conclusions of the analysis leave us with a distinct impressions of the ET hypothesis as the elephant in the dining room that no one would acknowledge. December 16, 1948, General Put changed the name of Project Sign to Project Grudge. The official switch occurred on February 1949. It signified a more serious debunking and dismissal of UFOs. Grudge's methods were twofold: explain every UFO report, then tell the public how it had solved the sighting. So it was going to give you an answer like fireball or meteor, or a bug on the lens of a camera, so that the public would be completely duped, deceived. The change was so pronounced that Rupert even wondered whether there was a hidden reason. You think? They're building underground cities, stocking them up with groceries. They're publishing books that say the people, it's unsustainable and they have to depopulate the planet. And who's behind all this? The Freemasons. It says right on this book, the Club of Rome on the bottom. Another one of the lodges. And the people who control all the money are certainly paying for this underground cities. These people are your Masons, Freemasons, Illuminati, Rosicrucians, and all the other occultic secret organizations. Let's see. It signified a more serious debunking and dismissal of UFOs, Project Grudge. All right. It was actually an attempt to go underground to make the UFO investigation project more secretive. General developments. This article served as the basis of Scully's book published in 1950, Beyond Flying Saucers. I believe I have that book. I'm going to try to finish this up now here. I think you get the point. But there is something here that was pretty interesting. The death of James Forrester, page 70. I should tell you about this. He was the secretary, let's see, who was James Forrester? Journalist Drew Pearson, in particular, said that Forrester complained of being followed by Jews or Zionists. Remember the Middle East wars we got going on? It's over there in Egypt. These guys are wearing Egyptian stuff on their shirts. So it certainly follows that the establishment of Israel and all the destruction in the Middle East and all the archaeological digs going on like they're looking for something. So Mr. Forrester, President at the time, Truman, was dismissing him because Forrester wouldn't balance the budget under Truman's command, which was the excuse. But Forrester was the head of the CIA, Secretary of State, Defense, and knew all about the UFOs. So apparently they had to hush him up. So I'm just giving you the story briefly. So Truman was reelected unexpectedly, and then Forrester was giving his walking papers. But after the ceremony of Forrester's resignation, Clark, let's see, who was it here? Clark said he wanted to talk to Forrester. He said, "There is something I would like to talk to you about," Smithington told Forrester, and accompanied him privately during the ride back to the Pentagon. What Smithington said is not known, but Forrester emerged from the ride deeply upset even traumatized. So the Zionist people, along with the Illuminati and all the other people running the world, wanted Forrester out. They were heavily into the UFO issue back then. They had a ride in the car, and whatever Schmittington told Forrester, who apparently was a good man, was so shaken up that he was traumatized. Forrester was taken home, but within a day the Air Force flew him to Hobe Sound, Florida, at the home of Bob Lovett, former future Secretary of Defense. Forrester's first words were, "Bob, they're after me." So one suicide attempt, certain that the communists were planning an imminent invasion. And if people don't know who the communists are, just consider the word communist. It means commune, a commune. And what? That means like cages or rounded up, barracks. And what do you put in cages or pens or prisons, FEMA camps? Cattle. So communist is commune, and that's a New World Order term for everybody as a collective. And so many people are going for this new age, and they're being told what it says on the bottom of the Freemasonic book: equality, liberty, and fraternity. See the pyramid down there? This is the Luciferian people. They want to control everybody, and it's communist is commune, which is treating the people like cattle, which is running the world from Israel, Jerusalem, and Tel Aviv, the New World Order, which is prophesied, I suppose, in the Bible and all that. So when you talk about these people, if you put it into context, you can see who they are. So Forrester was so shaken up by what he was told by Schmittington, he was completely lost his mind, and he was known as being a very intelligent, hardworking, good American man, which many of them, like Kennedy, as we know, who didn't play along, or Lincoln, or many people, they got assassinated. So anyways, somebody from Washington called, I'm just going to briefly tell you this, and said to put Forrester in a mental institution on the high 15th floor or something, and relieved the guard the regular guard was dismissed, and another guard was called in. Nevertheless, Forrester took a flight out the window. So he would have been highly up in the UFO knowing what's going on. And whatever Schmittington told him from the Zionist group shook him up. And he couldn't even talk. It's like, they're after me. Father Sheely had reason to suspect murder when he arrived at Bethesda Naval Hospital after learning of Forrester's death. An experienced hospital corpsman approached him through the crowd. In a low, tense voice said, "Father, you know Mr. Forrester didn't kill himself, don't you?" Anyway, so just in the intrigue at that time, during the decision-making to keep all the UFO information secret, so the summer and fall of 1949, to intercept let's see here, May 21, 1949, Hartford, Washington, to intercept a flying disc seen visually and by radar over restricted airspace at 20,000 feet. On July 10, 1949, observers saw two round white UFOs suddenly enter their field of vision, maneuver around a missile traveling at 1,300 miles per hour. The object paced the missile on either side, so they fired a missile at it, and the object gets beside the missile and paces it. Wasn't worried about it. Then one object passed through the missile's exhaust and joined the other. The now unified object, so it was two objects and they united, accelerated upward and left the missile behind. According to Naval Captain McLaughlin, 5 separate observation posts saw the incident. McLaughlin later reported the sighting, adding that many times I have seen flying discs flying and overtaking missiles in flight at the experimental base at White Sands. In August 1949, a mere 6 months after Project Grudge commenced, it issued a classified report firmly debunking flying saucers. So they know full well they're there, they're having all these incidences. And to make this video stop, as I could go on and on with the descriptions. As you can see, there's that many more pages of descriptions. So get this book. Let me just jump to something in 1950. I wanted to do from 1950. TWA pilots saw a UFO hovering at high altitude. The pilots were unaware that CAA had received about 20 other reports describing a UFO in the area. 2 of the pilots saw the object, which appeared to be round, and in the words of one of them, huge and metallic. The target was a good solid return caused on radar. Witnesses reported that the UFO climbed vertically out of sight at high speed. One was at Selfridge Air Force Base in Michigan, where a lone UFO caused multiple radar sightings and was tracked up to 1,500 miles per hour. Another occurred on March 16th at the Naval Station at Dallas, when a chief petty officer saw a disc-shaped UFO approach a B-36 from below, hover for a moment, then speed away. The Air Station commander confirmed the sighting. All spring commercial airline pilots personnel reported UFOs in droves to the Air Force. These typically involved objects or discs of circular design combined with exceptional maneuverability and speed. In at least one case, an airport watch supervisor saw an identified light split into 2 lights, which revolved around each other, similar to the Kodiak case. So that's why I keep bringing in this esoteric or Egyptian and the wings and the occult. Balls of lighting flying around aircraft planes, splitting apart and then joining back together. How do you explain that? Alright, on June 24th, a cigar-shaped UFO paced a United Airlines plane for 20 miles, about 100 miles northwest of Los Angeles. The object was seen by the plane's crew, as well as the crews of another commercial airliner and a Navy transport plane. The Navy pilot saw the UFO for 3 minutes. He described it as a dark gray and giving the appearance of a faint shimmering heat radiation at the tail's end. He estimated the object altitude at between 50 and 150,000 feet and moving at 1,000 to 1,500 miles per hour. Well, I think I've made my point. I'll do another little picture show. But these are some of the artist renditions. The aliens from the star system Sirius. I don't know. They paint a picture of a futuristic reality like this. I'm not so sure of that. Human beings, alien entities, something like this. If you heard some of those descriptions. Tying it in with the esoteric and the wings and the snakes. The beams on the bottoms that apparently beamed up people in some of the books on UFOs and aliens that we've read, that I've read, that you've read. And I myself took some pictures. in Orlando. 3 of them. There was like 7 in a row flying. Here you can see 3 in this picture. Definitely not a helicopter. No noise. I blew some of these up. But 7 in a row, and it wasn't the moon. Like I said, those are 7 of them. And I blew it up. And it looks like taking a picture of the moon. If you blow it up, it has the rings and looks like that at night. So, but it wasn't the moon, of course, because there were several in a row. I think about a total of 7 flew by. And then they shot up from my observation point. I did do a UFO report on one of those sites when I saw this and told them. I wish I'd have had my video camera wasn't working right. Anyways, so I had my own sighting. It was bizarre. So when I first saw them, I was on my back patio, and I saw one come along, and I thought, well, must be a helicopter, and then another one, then another one. So I didn't know what to make of it. They talk about Palladians from the star systems. The Pleiades. Which, if we remember, on Van Daniken's book, The Gold of the Gods, with that stone and the strange language on the bottom of the stone, along with the star system, it was the Pleiades star system. And this is supposedly what they look like. There's lots of books written out there about the New Age and the Palladian workbook and astral travel and interdimensional communications with folks like this. Lovely, right? Not quite sure. And a lot of people I talk to who are into the New Age say they're in communicato with a being called a master. Spirit guide. There's a glowing being here. I suppose this is a cigar-shaped ship with the portals on the side, which in some of the descriptions, saucers were coming and going from these ships. What kind of beings are they? And if we listen to the Pope and all the stuff coming out of Hollywood, we'd have to say that they're demonic, satanic. And the video I saw with the bodies that are decapitated in the Middle East, and the Kabbalah by the Zionists, and some of the other reports that I have read of the witchcraft, Satanists kidnapping people and having sacrifices. Palladians, the being of light, beings of light. Isn't Lucifer the being of light? And sex is a huge part of the protocol. So there was a lot of historic evidence that the gay movement was hugely a lot of the satanic movement of the past. They engaged, even in the Bible, Sodom and Gomorrah. I'm not making this up. And again, the wings and the SWAT team in California recently, the symbols The symbols give it away. The secrets, forests are getting thrown out the window. Sky spraying in America. Secret occultic Freemason lodges. Underground tunnels. Cities. What are they preparing for? Reports done by secret people hired by the government. This is online for free. You can print it out. And basically they said, well, if peace broke out, there would be no way to keep the people in line and deceive the people. So they have to keep these terrorist attacks, these fear attacks, these threats up. So the people will submit to them doing whatever craziness they're doing, like 911. And again, keeping it into context, it's not two separate issues. This is going on while all that stuff is going on. 911, Oklahoma City bombing, World War I, World War II. All that money, those wars, gave them the money to get involved in this kind of technologies. That's Billy Myers. Look him up in his story. And that's the alien who visited him. The Billy Myers story. There was another interesting video I saw yesterday about Yellowstone National Park. Apparently they got these trucks. Remember we did the Nikola Tesla video where if you took a building and you put a device on it that hit it at the right frequency, the whole building would vibrate and come crumbling down. Nikola Tesla said he could crack the world in half. Well, apparently at Yellowstone Park, go online, look this up, they got these gigantic semi-tractor trailer trucks with this great big hammer in the center of the truck. Boom, boom. That can send vibrations into the earth. And why would anybody, how insane is it that anybody would do that over the Yellowstone magma center to try to induce it to break free? Look that up though. So they have these charts, seismic charts, and they got these trucks and these big hammers in the middle to pull up and turn it on. Boom, boom, boom. To irritate the magma, the Yellowstone conundrum, however you say it. So that was in one video I watched, and I passed it on to a couple of my friends. I said, can this be true? So somebody seriously, if they're doing that, that's beyond belief. Look it up. It's June 24th, a cigar-shaped UFO paced an American airliner plane for 20 minutes, about 200 miles. Just want to read a few more here and finish this up. Let's see here. Jim and Coral Lorenzo, analysts, claim the occupant sightings more thoroughly than any other researchers during the early years of 1975. So they're having sightings of the occupants, aliens, and then they write books about the population bomb. At the same time, 1975 here. They wrote that Scully was either telling the truth or was a prophet. Small humanoids, generally answering his description, had been seen a number of times. Wilbert Smith came to the U.S. with several colleagues and met with the office of Robert Sarbacher, a physicist with the U.S. Defense Department Research and Development Board. The facts reported in Scully's book are substantially correct. To Smith's questions as to whether saucers exist, Sarbacher replied, yes, they exist, and we have not been able to duplicate their performance. He also told Smith that the UFO subject was classified 2 points higher than even the H-bomb. In fact, it was the most highly classified subject in the U.S. government at the present time. Sarburcher also confirmed that debris recovered from an alien vessel was extremely light and very tough, and described the debris in a manner consistent with the descriptions of the Roswell wreckage. Smith said the Canadians have weighed 3 possibilities. 1, they're interplanetary. 2nd, they're a United States secret device. 3rd, they're Russian. The last 2 don't stand up from the weight of evidence. I believe the saucers come from outer space, and I think their appearance is what suddenly increased your government's interest in space travel and artificial satellite, judging from our own operation. And I'm still wondering, why do they have occultic stuff on the shirts? Why are they practicing SWAT team exercises in cities all over the world in the United States? Why are they treating citizens like we're slaves, like we should be told to do and shut up? That's not living. That's not being a human. That's not being intelligent. All right, 1950 to 1951. An official at the base saw a disc make a turn too sharply for any known aircraft. He described it as a clearly defined outline similar to a stubby cigar, and moving faster than an airplane, slower than a meteor. Another interesting encounter took place on July 9, 1951, over Deering, Georgia. While flying an F-15, Air Force Lieutenant George Kinnan saw a white disc-shaped object, completely round, spinning in a clockwise direction and making a head-on pass at his aircraft. The Air Force officer described the object as flat on top and bottom, appearing from a front view to have round edges and slightly beveled. No vapor trails or exhaust or visible means of propulsion. Described as traveling at tremendous speed. White Sands 2 radar operators picked up a fast-moving object on July 14th. The tracker watched a B-29 through the binoculars and saw a large UFO near the bomber, which supposedly showed a round bright spot. August 25, 51, 3 college professors relaxing in the backyard at Lubbard, Texas, saw a formation of about 20 to 30 soft, glowing, bluish-green lights silently pass over them. They saw at least 10 more. Carl Hart took 5 photographs of them in his backyard. While the Lovelock lights bewildered the people of Texas, a low-flying V-shaped object appeared over Sandia Air Force Base, a key atomic base in New Mexico. He described an extra-governmental group with predominant influence within the government. The real controllers. T-33 jet trainer out of Dover Air Force Base in Maryland saw a dull silver disc-like object far below them. They obtained a radar fix on the object, which was traveling as fast as 900 miles per hour. Moving on to 1950. Trying to see the date here. 1952. I just skipped bunches of pages and descriptions, but we're getting the idea. An intelligence officer, a B-36 crew, and an airborne, 1952, witnessed 2 shiny round objects overtake their plane. The objects slowed down to match the plane's speed and remained in formation with them for about 20 seconds. At that point, they made a sharp, no-radius turn away from the B-36, flew away a bit, and then one of the objects stopped and hovered. Both objects were silent. The same day, Georgia Air Force Base in California, 5 independent witnesses saw a group of 5 light discs. The objects appeared to be very maneuverable and seemed almost to collide and then break away. Rupert, UFO sighting in May by one of the 2 people in the CIA while he gave a lawn party at his home in Alexandria, Virginia. A silent object performed a nearly vertical climb, then dove straight down, leveled off, and zoomed away. A number of notable personages in attendance also saw it. Alright, so the Washington, D.C. sightings. This is an interesting one. The Washington sightings were among the most compelling and dramatic UFO sightings in modern American history and remain, despite any official pretense to the contrary, unsolved. At 11:40 p.m. on July 19th, radar in Washington National Airport picked up a formation of 7 objects near Andrews Air Force Base, moving along at a leisurely pace of 100 to 130. Before long, 2 of the targets suddenly accelerated and vanished off the scopes within seconds. One of them apparently reached 7,000 miles an hour. It seems to me that a lot of these UFO sightings, the craft and the aliens, or whatever they are, wanted to be seen and were showing off. We're taunting the people who ran the government. And meanwhile, the government was trying to keep it from the public, so they created this vast national security state, with the public still in denial and ignorant. So moving on here, just trying to finish this up. Get the book. I hardly read any of it. I'm skipping so many descriptions I didn't realize there was that many. A NATO encounter, 1952. Fireball reports had come from several cities, including Baltimore, before one appeared to land in a small town at Flatwoods. 7 people, mostly children, trekked to the site and claimed to see an enormous creature over 10 feet tall with glowing eyes and an overpowering stench. The county sheriff, initially skeptical, encountered the odor at the site and noted a circular area of flattened grass. Camp Drum near Fairfax, Virginia on September 22. For 30 minutes, several soldiers watched a orange-red UFO circling and hovering over their camp while they heard a distant hum from the craft. Naval exercises in the North Sea near Britain, known as Operation Main Brace. At least 4 sightings occurred. In 1952, September 9th, a silver and spherical UFO appeared above Topcliffe Air Force Base in North Yorkshire. An RAF Meteor jet was scrambled. The pilot got close enough to describe the object as rotating in its vertical axis and wobbling slightly. The UFO moved in a zigzag fashion and then flew off. Do you get it yet? Page 135. I just skipped over about 20 pages here. Stencil claimed he was taken, page 134, with other specialists in a blacked-out buses to a desert site where he saw a 30-foot wide saucer embedded in the sand. He claimed to see a humanoid figure, apparently dead, 3 to 4 feet tall, inside a guarded tent. Naval intelligence officer who told him of alien bodies at Wright-Addison Air Force Base. 1953 in Iran, a very bright, large, fast-moving object was seen for 20 minutes over the oil areas of the Khuzestan. On May 23, South African radar tracked a UFO near the Cape, moving at 1,000 miles an hour. CIA files, a UFO followed a man driving from Cape Town to Uppington. Alright, here we go. August 1953, UFO reporting procedures with the issuance of AFR 200, which superseded AF 200-5 from the previous year. The order tightened UFO reporting and investigation procedures, further restricted the release of UFO information. So the government was heavily into keeping you out of the know and me out of the know. Meanwhile, they won't tell us anything. San Rafael, California, 14 cigar-shaped objects without wings but with lights on them in a loose V formation about the size of a biomotor. No sound or means of propulsion was observed. One object appeared to be leading the formation at an estimated speed of 200 miles per hour. Then objects appeared to turn and head north, disappearing behind the clouds. New Guinea took 94 frames of motion pictures film that showed a disc-shaped object coming out of a particular cloud, then make a 90-degree turn and climb steeply in New Guinea. Alright, let's go to 1954. Let's see. Here's a guy here who was involved. Olson had been duped into meeting with MKUltra director Gottlieb and other CIA officials for a meeting at a secluded cabin in November 19, 1953. That evening, Gottlieb spiked Olson's alcoholic drink with LSD. Olson then plunged to his death from the 10th floor of the Startler Hotel. So back then, not only were the CIA heavily into the reverse engineering of the UFO and alien work, they were seriously involved in LSD and mind control experiments, abducting many people. It's in this book here. Manchurian candidate or programmed assassin. This is just theorizing here. Next, he hypothesized another secretary to try awaken the first. He hypnotized another secretary to try to awaken the first, and if she could not, to become enraged as to kill her. So he hypnotized two ladies, and he told one to wake the other, and if he could not wake, she could not wake the other girl, to kill her. He left an unloaded gun nearby. Not only did the second woman shoot the sleeping woman, but she could not recall the incident and denied shooting. So they can hypnotize people to be assassins. This technology that these people have done with all this money and secrecy has completely gotten out of hand, according to this book and many others. And who's in control? The Freemasons, the Illuminati, Zionists, banksters, and all the other occultists. And they want to get rid of the people. Just saying. The same names are involved, the same people involved. You have to look at the whole thing, in my opinion. No wonder some people say my videos are insightful. It gets me a little upset. Alright, let's just move to 55. Be done with this. I'm just passing over lots of stuff. Humanoid sightings. What follows constitutes one of the most bizarre and baffling UFO events ever. Between September and December 1954, a heavy concentration of UFO reports, at times dozens per day, came from France, Italy, Britain, Germany, North Africa, Middle East, and South America. People were seeing more than objects in the sky. They claimed to see landings of UFO and short humanoid beings. I wonder if it's those aliens. It is noteworthy that the Lorenzos had collected a few humanoid sightings, reports from South America, during 1953 and 1954, which closely matched the events of this autumn. Alright. Much of them described beings between 3 and 4 feet tall, some of which were human-looking, others almost human-looking, others wore diving suits, others were hairy gray, and even shorter than 2 feet. Okay, and none of the sightings included descriptions of what are called greys, the small, thin creatures with big, dark eyes, made famous from the cover of Whitley Strieber's Communion. Frenchtown, near Belgian border, a husband, wife, and her father were driving when they saw a luminous red ship disk stop across the road, up about 1,000 feet. The object rose and took off at high speed. And another one here, he said he saw 2 creatures just beyond the fence, walking in single file toward a dark mask at the railroad tracks. The creatures were about 3 to 1.5 feet tall, with very wide shoulders, short legs, helmets covering what seemed to be enormous heads. Sounds like these. Recovering from his initial shock, he ran to cut them off and got within 6 feet of them. At that point, a powerful orange light came from a square opening in the dark mass, blinding him. Dwight felt paralyzed. His legs would not move. He saw the creatures continue toward the tracks. The dark object ran and hovered, and the door closed. The object rose to about 100 feet, turned east, and disappeared. Throughout France, UFO activity was heavy. A few days after the Dwight case, September 14th, a daytime UFO sighting occurred before hundreds of witnesses about 250 miles southwest of Paris. Another sighting on the 19th involved a flat gray circular object which slowed and stopped, hovered motionless for 30 seconds, swayed, and took off. Then on the afternoon of September 26th, on the town of Valence, a woman claimed to see a humanoid being while she was gathering mushrooms in the woods. Her dog barked, and she saw a short being wearing a translucent helmet and suit. She saw large eyes looking at her through the helmet. The being approached her, moving awkwardly. She screamed and ran. When she turned around, she saw a large, circular, and flattened metallic object rise from behind the trees, depart rapidly, gaining altitude all the time. So the invasion of France, October 1954. I'm not going to read all this, but there's just pages of descriptions. Like I keep saying, give credit where credit is due. Go buy Richard's book, Richard Dolan. And decide for yourself. Taking everything into context, though, is what I like to say. Okay, 1955. Here we are. I wanted to do 45 to 55. A month later, the Air Force revised the UFO B Guide again, ordering investigators to use common sense in identifying UFOs. This ruled out the possibility that a witness saw anything truly extraordinary. So use common sense and find an excuse, because the people can't know what's up. All right, Lear. February 2, 1955, Lear gave a press conference in Bogota, Colombia, stating his belief that flying saucers came from outer space and are piloted by beings of superior intelligence. He gave 4 main reasons. Numerous manifestations over a long period of time. Many observations come simultaneously from reliable observers. There are great possibilities linked with the theory of gravitational fields. There are now some serious efforts in progress to prove the existence of anti-gravitational forces, and to convert atomic energy directly to electricity. Lear's prominence ensured wide press coverage. On February 10th, back in Grand Rapids, Michigan, Lear told reporters he had seen a flying saucer 2 months earlier while flying near Palm Springs, California. And who is Lear? I know who he is, but let's see. The legendary American inventor William P. Lear, 1902 to 1978. So let's see where we are here. Oberth had made a statement during the summer of 1954 that UFOs were conceived and directed by intelligent beings of a very high order. They probably do not originate in our solar systems, perhaps not even in our galaxy. Like William Lear, Townsend Brown, and Wilbur Smith, Oberth decided that UFOs were propelled by distorting the gravitational field, converting gravity into usable energy. So we know that to keep all this technology and information secret, they've created a secret government, and they have all kinds of issues going on for distraction and all this craziness going on in the world. At page 177, UFO-related news continued to seep out in 1955. The Los Angeles Examiner ran a piece on Dorothy Killinger on May 22, in which she reported from London that British scientists and airmen had examined the wreckage of a mysterious flying ship. These investigators were convinced that UFOs were not optical illusions or Soviet inventions, but extraterrestrial. On January 1, 1955, a formation of 5 UFOs was seen near Lima, Peru. By many witnesses, the objects hovered over the city and gave off an intense silvery light. In San Sebastian, Spain, on January 5, a red circular object about 10 feet wide was seen to land and take off again. On January 14th, an unknown object hit the wing of a B-47 jet bomber in California. On February 2nd, a veteran airline pilot and co-pilot in Venezuela had a clear view of a UFO with lights and portholes. The receiver went dead and the object sped away. More green fireballs were observed over Texas. A humanoid sighting is said to have occurred during the spring of 1955 in Loveland, Ohio. A businessman saw 3 short beings by the side of the road at 4 a.m. On July 3rd, near Stockton, Georgia, a woman was driving along when she saw 4 beings near the road that looked similar to later descriptions of grays. She said they were small with thin arms, pointed chin, no visible mouths, and bug eyes. 2 were turned away from her, while 1 was bent over with something like a stick in his hand, and the 4th one faced her with its right arm raised. In Bradford, England, on August 16th, a man and his teenage son claimed to see 4 tall beings in skin-tight black clothes. On its chest was a silver disc perforated with holes, and it seemed to walk by jumping. The witnesses were too amazed to follow it. So there you go. Further research into what the hell was going on in the world. Freemasonry and Satanism. We know that these people control the Freemasons, the banks, the money, and they have, as I showed you, they have facilities all over the planet. George Bush was a skull and bones Freemason. Reagan, Clinton, Nixon, Kissinger, all those people are at the Bohemian Grove in California, tossing a baby into a burning fire, where they toss a baby into a burning fire, and do all kinds of seemingly satanic rituals. So my point is, the people who are running our world know all about this stuff. And even the Pope builds the telescope in Arizona called Lucifer. So tying all this together, that we know who runs the world, the banksters, the Illuminati, the Zionists, the Freemasons, the lodges, the occultists, the Rosicrucians, the Vatican. And we know they're in control of the CIA, FBI, NSA, all the other agencies all over the world. So you have to marry these two subjects together. And it seems like the murder and mayhem supports my theory of satanic activity. And the New World Order, and the New Age, and all the occultic signs. Kate Perry on stage doing a satanic ritual. Beyonce doing a satanic ritual. Miley Cyrus with little horns on her head doing satanic rituals. I could go on here. In the Eurovision, the Europe's version of the American Idol show, Conchita Wurst wins with a head look like Jesus and a body and a silky dress like a woman, singing the song Phoenix Rising with the words, "You can't stop us." So I tie everything together. The people who put that production of the Eurovision, Conchita Wurst, first name means female organ, and Wurst is similar to a male organ. That's not her real name, his name. We don't know what sex it is. Conchita Wurst. Go look it up. There's videos on YouTube. It's too bizarre to believe. Along with the UFO and the aliens. And a telescope named Lucifer. And American police departments with Hermes and Lucifer shirts. Just say it. It is what it is. Thank you for watching my videos. And like I like to always say, may God help us. Because I believe in God. And these people believe in Lucifer. And the Pope is now, according to Francis, and gaining support all over the world from the New Age enthusiasts, supporting and praising Lucifer, and saying, apparently, according to one video I watched this morning, that you and I shouldn't be talking to Jesus directly because it can be dangerous. Pray tell why. So may God help us all to wake up and protect us from whatever. Thank you for watching my videos.